Hello. Thank you for joining me this final session. So I am a white male in my 50s, hardly any hair, very short beard, blue dress shirt, patterned, and blue, I want to say trousers. I said pants once. There's going to be some of those language issues probably in this talk. Thank you to Claire for reminding me to describe myself, which is something I'll try to do every talk I give from now on. So I also behind me have a planet. It's a beach ball. And the way that I was introduced now by Sean, it reminded me that when I bought this, I thought it was so cool. I thought of filling it with helium and doing what Charlie Chaplin does in The Dictator and do this whole session as an interpretative dance. That won't happen, but it might do in the next iteration. I brought this because some of you will want to fact check me after this talk. And we can do that together on that globe. I want to start by engaging you in raising your hands. And raise your hands and keep it raised as long as you agree with my statements. I have lied. I have lied to someone I care about. I believe I will continue to lie in the future. I've made design decisions with insufficient data. At least I love that you're not lying right now. I will continue to make design decisions with insufficient data. Yep, tracks. I trust maps to give me accurate information. See, I was expecting hands to go down there. The Earth is flat. No takers. We'll see. We'll do that again. So this photo that I had in the first slide, that was my first lie. That photo was actually not the Earthrise photo. This is more known as the Earthrise photo, which was taken in 1968 by a human orbiting the moon. And what many people don't know about this mission is that they were not up there to take a photo of the Earth. That was purely by chance. They happened to see the Earth rising, and they scrambled to get their Hasselblad camera. And when you watch this, take note that it's a Hasselblad camera because it's Swedish, which is where I'm from. They actually reproduced this specific event when they took the picture for the 45th anniversary, just, 2013, if you do your maths. And so we will actually be able to follow with the real recording from the capsule. Also take note of how surprised they are that they see the Earth and that the camera has black and white film in it at first. Supposed to be sound. Thankfully, there are subtitles. There we go. Nope. That's not the sound that it's supposed to be. What's happening is they're turning the capsule, looking out the window, and now is when... So we turn off the sound on the computer. Don't take the picture, it's not scheduled. There's the first black and white photo. You got a color film, Jim? Oh man, that's great, where is it? hurry, quick. So they're scrambling inside the capsule. We're seeing an Earthrise for the first time. So it was really a team effort. Bill Anders is the guy who got credited for the photo, but they were all scrambling to make this happen. Is everyone familiar with what film is? They thought they missed it. So it disappears, and it appears in another window on the capsule. I will link to this video from the link I'm giving you at the end of the talk, so you will be able to watch it with sound as well. Calm down. And there we go, that's the Earthrise photo. They were arguing about the exposure of the camera, or the film. So here's actually a transcript of some of the key points. They're so surprised by this. It's not scheduled. We think he's joking. So they took the photo. They didn't even have the color film ready. And they're all just emotional about it, which is fantastic. And I think that is what this photo is about. Just 18 months after this photo was taken, 20 million people took to the streets across the US to protest environmental destruction in the first ever Earth Day. This photo had a huge impact on the environmental movement. And I just love this quote because it's so important to recognize what a small little marble we are in this vast expanse of blackness. And this is what people were realizing for the first time. It shows the Earth that we all live on, a little blue sphere set within this black expanse. It suggests everything from fragility to our uniqueness. There are no lines in space. Humans started drawing them to make sense of the world. This is one of the first world maps. It's actually at the British Museum. Has anyone seen it? Oh yeah, a few of you. 2,600 years old, so from 600 BC. Found literally by the rivers of Babylon, which is today the middle of the Middle East in Iraq. And on the back of it, it has star patterns, and it has the city of Babylon as this huge thing in the middle, and looking in 7 different directions. There are like scorpion figures, these monsters off in the distance. Lots of mythology. So it has some of the features of modern maps. It maps size. Some things are more important than others, so they get a bigger size. They map dominance, centricity. Babylon is in the middle. They take away stuff they don't know about. They add stuff that they don't know about, like the scorpions. Many things are exaggerated. They're distorted. It's from their perspective. This is a world map of something that you probably will recognize. Marked on this world map are the places where I have lived. I was actually born in West Africa in Liberia, where I lived the first 5 years of my life. Then I spent 2 years in Sweden, where my parents are from. Moved to Saudi Arabia for another 4 years, then to Tanzania. So maps and understanding the world has always been sort of my thing. I've always been very curious about it. And this is me and my sister sitting in the desert in Saudi Arabia. Don't know what year it is, maybe 1984. Trying to stay out of the heat by sitting in the I'm going to say this right, in the boot of the car, not the trunk. And purely by chance, actually, we both started working with digital ethics and human rights issues in the tech world. But my sister, she's a doctor of technoscience studies, and I'm just very, very curious. And I was wondering, at that age, why is it called Middle East? It's not very middle, it's not very east. The region that we know as the Middle East is actually some of the most northern parts of Africa or Southwest Asia. And it's been thought of many times that we should actually have more of a naming convention calling it West Asia. Hasn't happened because it's all Eurocentric. That's when I started to realize what Eurocentric means. This is a world map that is common in China. Because, just like that clay tablet, we like to put the things that matter to us in the middle. So China is closer to the middle. What's in the east? In the east is the US, that eastern country. And do we even have to make maps wide? Why don't we make them narrow? This isn't too uncommon in China. In Japan, they put Japan in the middle. Australian-centric would look like this. And why shouldn't it look like this? What is it that makes north be top and south be down? There's no rule of law that says, or rule of nature even, that says that that has to be the case. Even Christian maps often put east at the top because Eden was to the east. So what we are trying to do when we are looking at maps is we're trying to solve puzzles. But are you solving it correctly? When you're looking at stuff as the world map, what are you seeing? What are you interpreting? The map is trying to say one thing, but you may be making assumptions that just aren't true based on appearances. What's a typical scale for a world map on the wall in schools? That's a trick question because that's impossible. There is no single scale across the world map. So most commonly, we use cylindrical maps where we take the globe, now imagine the globe behind me, and you put a big piece of paper around it. You don't literally do that. This is just to explain it. And you map all the locations on that globe to a square or rectangular paper, which means that the poles, if you are trying to make vertical meridians straight, so meridians are the ones going north to south, if you're trying to make them straight, that means that the single dot that is the North Pole and the South Pole is spread out across that whole width of that paper, which is just weird. So actually this picture from Encyclopedia Britannica shows what we tend to do. We just cut off the top and bottom of the map. So we forget about all that distortion. Many world maps are actually centered on Germany, which is in the northern hemisphere. So this is what it would look like, the whole map. The Mercator projection is what this is most commonly called. And I know many of you have heard, well, okay, so Greenland isn't really that big. So let's just cut it off. Isn't that what we do? And so the equator, the bottom line here is the real equator, but the yellow dotted line is the middle of the map. So what we think is the middle of the world is not the middle. And many of you may have tried out the truesizeoff.com. Otherwise, you're in for a treat. What it is, you can type in any country into that field. It'll create an outline of the country, and you can drag it top to bottom on the screen. and it will show what size that country would be if it was lower or higher down the map. So here's me taking Liberia, pulling it up. It's wider than Sweden, though it's a tiny, tiny country on the west coast of Africa. Here's Saudi Arabia. It's actually bigger than the whole of Scandinavia. And of course, I have to do Tanzania as well. And Madagascar is one of those I like to do because it looks smaller than Sweden. Sweden is smaller than Madagascar, but it also looks about the size of the UK. It's about twice the size of the UK Madagascar is. And of course, because everybody talks about it, you have to see it if you haven't seen it before. How big is Greenland if we pull it down to Africa? About 1/14. So if this happens to size, what then happens to distance? And this is an interesting one, because it's not what I thought, and I don't think it's what you think now either. The line across Russia is 6,400 kilometers long, it says. The line across Africa is 7,200 kilometers long, because, of course, of the distorted sizes. But, or actually not but people, of course, have been tweeting. This is part of a blog post I wrote a while back, years ago. And people have been tweeting this and defending my stance. But there were community notes added on Twitter, as there was and is these days as well, I'm not on there anymore, that said that this is just not true, because Russia across is 9,000 kilometers. So people just said, this is definitely not true. And so a travel agent went online and defended this whole thing and mapped out on Google Earth, well, I can't get 9,000 out of any measurement unless, no, not even if I measure to the furthest islands outside Russia. It's just impossible. So, what is the spectacular lie in this map? The line across Russia is not the shortest distance between those 2 points. The shortest distance between those 2 points is visualized in the image to the right. That's the shortest distance between those 2 points, which is the border to Latvia and the northeasternmost point of Russia. How is that even possible? How is that possible? Because, and that's true, that line is actually 6,400 kilometers long. It's this line, I mapped it out on Google Earth. And you can see it goes along Finland's rightmost border and over to that peninsula in Russia, across water. So the way you make that curve to the left is actually by realizing, well, those islands that it has to cross, those islands are up there, so that's how we could map it out more easily. This is so weird. So look at the border of Russia at the top. It's convex, isn't it? It goes up. So what if I pull Russia down to the equator? Keep an eye on the northern border. The northern border is concave, and that's more like the truth. And the yellow line, the curved line at the top, would probably be straight at the border. It would still go across the water. And the line that everybody's tweeting and doing this meme about, that is only 6,400 kilometers, that's actually across land then. And I checked. That curved line is 9,000. But why would you compare the curved line with the straight line? You will be able to double check all this. You'll get all the slides. So it's actually that line we're looking at. Because if you take a curved line and you map it out onto a straight piece of paper, and it's curved at the bottom, you make it straight, of course, the bottom lifts up. But it's not that easy either, because you also have to take into account that it's curving outwards from you. So many things going on. And that's why the flight paths, of course, that you're used to, that you can follow on screen these days, they look so weird, don't they? And so you assume, well, you're sitting there thinking now it's probably curved, isn't it? Do you think this is closer to reality for that line? Flying Dubai to San Francisco. Actually, it's more like this. That's the shortest distance, Dubai to San Francisco. And you can check it on a map from the top, looking down on the North Pole, because flying across is much shorter than, of course, flying around the whole Earth. This, oh, he's going to say that's a straight line too, isn't he? Yes, I am. That's a straight line. That's the furthest you can sail on the planet in a straight line without hitting land. I can prove that as well. Here we go from Pakistan. Are you ready? Down the east coast of Africa, on the inside of Madagascar, there's Antarctica, there's South America. And we're going on and on. The Pacific Ocean is really big. And there's the peninsula on Russia that we hit. So, one more. I'm at New Zealand, going straight, almost straight, southeast. What country do I hit? Going straight from New Zealand. Somewhere in Africa? That's a good guess. Any more takers? UK. It flips now to the north as it goes between Antarctica, because north now becomes north as we pass the South Pole. And yes, we hit UK. It's a straight line. I love that the scientists who did this added a disclaimer. Don't try this. So I'm going to say this. Do try this at home. If you take an orange and peel it and try to make it flat, that's how you can experiment with making a flat map from a globe. And this is from, there's no sound on this video, so don't worry. Did not add sound here on purpose so I could talk around it, because it's so funny how Hannah Fry here is trying to push down on it, because even if you cut it like that, you don't really make it flat. It's essentially impossible to make a flat map out of a globe, of course. Does anyone recognize this map? This is how I recognize the map aficionados in the audience. So you take an orange peel, it's even called the orange peel map. But also the good homolocene projection. Pseudo-cylindrical, so cylindrical but not really, because the meridians are curved, the ones going north to south. And you made dents in a lot of the world, because as you saw on the orange, that's what you had to do to be able to flatten it. Which means that this is also an equal area map, which means that it's more realistic when it comes to the sizes of countries. They also cut Greenland straight down the middle. I think that's funny, because obviously they should have done something similar in the northern hemisphere, but there was no other country they dared do that too. So they had to cut the orange like this instead. So this is interesting. So if you take this, which is more realistic, more equal area, and you put the Mercator projection behind it, how different will they be when it comes to size of the countries? Africa on this, centered, is essentially the same size. And then you can see how massively different the maps are. Why don't we know this? Why aren't there warning signs on all maps, as we have on our rearview mirrors? Objects in a mirror are closer than they appear. But how much closer, I always wonder. It's not really easy. You have to learn how to drive anyway. There is a tool that should accompany every map, I think, that places what is called a Tissot's indicatrix in the form of circles, which means that the circle that you're looking straight at is, of course, the round one, and then there are ellipses showing, well, the same size looks like this over here, or like this over there. So now we can add those circles to the Mercator projection and realize, wow, those countries are really distorted, aren't they? So, but what are the options? What are we going to do about this? People say, well, we're used to that map, but let's just keep it. There are cylindrical versions, there are conic versions, there are azimuthal versions. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who has ever seen an azimuthal projection before? We're looking from the top. Does anyone know which map it is on, or which flag it is on? UN, yes. Now, when you're focusing on the North Pole, the areas closer to the pole are actually more realistically sized. My favorite, close to my heart. These were actually, these are also mathematically sensible, because it's just the curve getting tighter and tighter the further north you go, and eventually it actually dips down into a heart shape, which is wonderful. And here, I love this about here, the northern border of Russia is concave, like it is in real life. And again, as you can see on the circles, on the indicatrix, it's better sized than what we're using. And it's just so beautiful. And part of it is actually that the heart, why they also loved doing these maps in the 1600s, is that they felt that it was mythologically a good thing. So that stuck with us. They added angels to the ends of the earth because those were responsible for protecting us. There's the Robinson projection. There's the Winkel-Tripler projection. You can see both of these are tightening the northern and southern, the poles actually, and making them slightly better than at least the Mercator. But we still know that the poles are a dot. They're not a long line. So this will still be distorted the closer to the edges you are. The Gall-Peters projection is a cylindrical equal area one, also cylindrical. This is what became popular when so many realized that we can't have the Mercator when the countries are so wrong on it. And why is Africa, which is such a huge continent, so tiny on the Mercator? So this is the correct sizes, but again, quite distorted. There's a hugely funny episode of The West Wing from the early 2000s where this, let's see, what are they called? I forget what they're called. But if the sound is the sound working? This also has subtitles. Oh, there. No. They're making it clear why we even use the Mercator projection. It's easier for navigation in small areas. So mapping from what direction you have to travel on a sailboat, Mercator projection is great for that. Not something we do every day now. They're talking about Germany, which I mentioned, which is now smack in the middle. Why is it there? So they're showing the Peters projection. They're pretty shocked. What are they looking at? It's where you've been living this whole time. And this is what I find when I talk about these things. That people just don't realize, what does the planet look like? you tend to adopt top and bottom attitudes, he's saying, when the maps look like this. And they don't have to look like this. But who wants to change that? There are so many maps, so many map projections, alternatives that are possible. I love the one that looks like a butterfly. So people have been trying to solve this for a long time. The orthograph has been quite popular because it's quite a recent projection that was developed by a Japanese guy, Hajime Narukawa. He worked for 6 years on this map. He won a design award for it. And it's awesome because you can actually add it together with others of the same map. So you can map out, so I think I have an image of that, and choose another rectangle depending on what you want to center on. It has some distortion, but not a whole lot. The problem with this map is it's a proprietary model. It's not open source. But people have, of course, been reverse engineering it. So if you want to try something very similar to this when you're mapping stuff, it's possible. But look here how easy it is to understand the flight path between Dubai and San Francisco. And I found this the other day. I just had to add it. Catherine Reeves made the equinational projection. Each nation just gets one square equally. It's the most equal map I've ever seen. So the US is 179, which I find funny because then it's just one dot in the northern hemisphere on this map. And then you can more easily see how many other countries there are in the Americas. I bet some of you have seen this map. It's a Robinson projection. Oh, sorry, it's not a Robinson. Thankfully, I wrote that. It's a Winkel triple map projection with a Valery-Pieris circle. A Valery-Pieris circle is one that defines the higher amount of population inside than outside. So what this is saying is there are more people living inside the circle than outside of it. What is the spectacular lie in this map? Have you been paying attention? Thank you. It's not a circle. Of course it's not a circle. So this other guy, he tested, I'm just going to say it because you may not have read it. The radius of this circle is 4,000 kilometers and centered on the South China Sea. And the guy who tested it found that, yes, inside that area, whatever ellipse it looked like, it's true. There are more people inside than out. But if we make a perfect circle, we can actually make it even smaller, which was pretty cool. So only 3,300 kilometers. And most fascinating, that circle includes the least densely populated country in the world, Mongolia. So it doesn't really tell us a lot about how extremely densely populated the densely populated areas are. So perhaps this is not the best tool for trying to communicate what we're trying to communicate here. Some theories suggest that Australia is Scooby-Doo. And there are so many of these types of memes flying around as well, because I think people are getting tired of the other types of memes that I'm showing. Oh, this line is just that long. Oh, this circle is so small, but everybody's living inside it. Oh, well, it looks like Scooby-Doo. And I'm not sure, I find it really funny, but it's sort of like we're getting tired of all these map facts. We're not paying attention to them, really. Yeah, that's okay, so I understand it's bigger. Do I understand how much bigger it is? How distorted it is? So actually back in the day, a lot of cartographic societies were saying, stop using these maps. They're just wrong. And they promote serious, erroneous conceptions by distorting these large sections of the world. And you won't believe what happened next. the web Mercator. Google entered the map space. And they have something called the web Mercator. It's also called the spherical Mercator, the WGS84 web Mercator, or even a pseudo Mercator. It's not a real Mercator, whatever that means. It has different spatial systems, used by virtually all major online map providers. It's very hard not to use this map. So what did Google do? So actually, there are different projections and different ways of mapping this out and calculating the exact latitude and longitude positions on these maps. And usually, if you have a globe, you use the sphere calculation. And if you have an ellipse, you use the ellipsoid calculation. That makes sense. Google shows the ellipse map, but uses the sphere calculation and gets everything wrong. But only at a very small scale. But a lot of cartographers are actually pretty mad about this because it just distorts everything. Shapes, angles, areas, distances, directions, rhomb line, compass bearings, etc. If you care about maps. And it's part of a video that I'll also be linking to, where he found that, well, if you use that way of measuring, and if you're working on a job where you have to dig up pipes to fix them in the ground, and you got the latitude and longitude for those pipes, that may be off by several meters, so you're going to start digging in the wrong place. And some of these standardization organizations even said, we won't devalue our data set with this. We won't touch it. You can't standardize your map with us. So they put an unofficial code, EPSG 9009-13 came to be used. And really, according to this data set, it's only supposed to go from 1024 to 32767. Who can see it? I know somebody can see it. It says Google. It's transliterated. 900913. They just made it up. That's how Google works. Now they actually, so why they have so many of these EPSD numbers? Because now they have so much money. Of course, in the end, they actually did get a real EPSD number. But at least they're still called a pseudo Mercator, but you're all using it. So, I've talked mostly about world maps, but I've done a lot of research for this talk, so I have material for hours and hours now. And I think we need to just step back and realize, well, who's making all these maps? They're being made on the west coast of the US, but what if other people were given power to make maps? It got to be included. They might well prioritize soil types over Starbucks, wells over Walmarts, and the state of land degradation over panoramic street views of American towns. But all this costs money, and not everyone can make up EPSG numbers. So what would it take to do this better? It's a hard argument to make because you would have to pay a lot of money to make the top world look smaller, or actually closer to reality, but it would look smaller, and it would confuse your constituents. Who wants to do this? There's a lot of friction, a lot of obstacles to get this right, because we're so used to it. Because people get freaked out as soon as you show them something other than the Mercator or the Robinson. Would it make maps more accurate? Sure. More people would learn about the Earth actually being a globe. But also, it wouldn't be more accurate. It would depend on what you're trying to map, what you're trying to say. And what I would want to happen, really, is let's help people understand what the map is showing. Help people understand what are the distortions, what are we leaving out. A cartographer is also a designer, right? deadlines, insufficient data that we talked about before, cultural biases, a budget, and an agenda. And have responsibilities. As designers, we also have responsibilities. We have expertise to fix this. So in the end, I think it comes down to each and every one of us. For all maps, I'm saying here, but we could easily say just for all tools, we need to ask, who made the tool? And why and under what constraints? Were they making it for someone else? Whose power is being wielded? What is the data source? And is it the right data source for the job? Because now we have to also talk about what's the purpose of the map. What is being left out, added, or distorted? Upon doing my research, there are so many areas of the world that really aren't mapped out. There are assumptions being made. There are islands that people find that don't exist, that have been on the maps for generations. Our maps still aren't correct. What assumptions are being made or are conveyed? And size being the easiest one. But also, who stands to lose from the use of this tool? This should be the real keys of map, the real legends of maps. That these answers should be on the maps. So what did we learn today? Participatory design. How do we give people more power over the maps they use? Everything we've learned today can be applied to this space as well. Working in the open, I mentioned that the orthograph map now is closed source. If we worked more in the open, it would be more obvious what is the problem. Be a superhero fan, I just added because I'm a huge superhero fan as well. I have an Avengers ring on right now that you can come and watch at the pub, have a look at. Change is hard, like Alex and Catherine talked about a lot, and we really don't want it. It's also an obstacle here. But you have the tools to make it happen. We know how to do these things. Trustworthiness in human-machine collaborations, extremely important in all the work we do, becoming more important. Again, also there, being open to how we are using these types of tools or machines to help us out. And in the case of AI, what maps are they being trained on? What answers will they give you about the world based on which ones are more prominent than others? Are we happy with this? That the average of the maps is the one we will live with now for all future. Map the pain points to understand the costs. And imagine the potential of the 100% perspective to mapping. I was constantly thinking, as Claire was talking earlier, well, wow, the maps all over would be so different. And people, if they were different, people would understand enough from just using those types of maps that, yes, we need to add something at the end of that curve to make sure that people can get up on it again. I love this quote by William Anders, the man who took the Earthrise photo. We set out to explore the moon and instead discovered the Earth. It's pretty profound to me because when I do user research, I'm trying to find the things that I didn't know to ask about. You all took your hands down when I said the Earth is flat, so I'm going to ask this a bit differently. I have acted as if the Earth is flat when I have underestimated how much flat maps distort the world. Oh, some hands. My work is done. So maps do need lines, and you need to understand what the lines say. And understanding what the lines say will help us all take better care of our home. We will understand more about the environment by seeing maps that are closer to how it actually works. Something I haven't covered that could also be an entire talk is going below the ocean surface. I've seen so many maps now of what happens under the surface, which affects all the animal migration in our seas and oceans. Choosing new lines is what I'm encouraging now. When you talk about the world, maybe use another projection in your talks. When you're talking to colleagues, it can help you talk about it differently. And you can start changing the world today, truly and literally. So thank you.